Hi, I'm Jazz Obrecht, and welcome to my Talking Guitar podcast with the great bass player, Darryl Jones. This interview was done in June 1994 when Darryl was the new guy in the Rolling Stones. But what a legacy he already had. The Chicagoan brought with him experiences touring with Madonna, Sting, Peter Gabriel, and most famously of all, he'd been Miles Davis's bass player of choice for 5 years. According to Keith, they auditioned dozens of bass players, and ultimately Keith said he left the decision up to Charlie Watts. Charlie decided that he wanted to work with Darryl Jones. When Charlie was asked about Darryl, this is what he had to say. Darryl's very much a rhythm section within a rhythm section. He doesn't play on top of the rhythm, he's underneath it, which is what we need. My interview with Darryl took place during the Voodoo Lounge rehearsals being held at a boys' school in Toronto in the summer of 1994. I met with Darryl on a sunny afternoon, and some of the cafeteria workers there were preparing the lunches for the Stones, so you can hear some noise of the dishes. I'm sorry, but Darryl's voice does come through loud and clear. A relaxed conversation, Darryl punctuated many of his insights with a ready smile or a knowing lift of his eyebrows. To me, it was really easy to see why the Rolling Stones enjoyed being in his presence. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Well, man, a lot of people are going to think you're about the luckiest musician in the world.
I feel like the luckiest musician in the world. And it's a feeling I've felt before.
Yeah, it comes from Miles.
Yeah.
Does it get any better than Miles? You could argue no, but then you're in the Stones. What's next?
Yeah. Well, if it does, this is it. You know? I can't think of anything else.
How did it
although, I mean, I've enjoyed all the work I've done, you know. But
how did it come about?
With the Stones?
Yeah.
There seem to be a few different stories. One, my story personally is I met Keith. I believe it was in 1987. He was working on the Talk Is Cheap record,
right.
And some friends of mine, Charlie Drake and Steve Jordan, were working with him, and they introduced me to him in New York. And I was maybe, going back and forth to rehearsal, something like that. Anyway, when the record came out, he went on, when he toured on it, I saw the show a few times, and once in Chicago, right near my birthday. In fact, it was my birthday, I think the day after they played. Yeah. And so after the gig that night, I went back to the hotel with those guys, and Keith called up and said, "Yo, everybody come down, we'll sit around and talk and stuff." So ended up Keith kind of given this kind of alternate tuning guitar lesson.
To you?
To us,
Was it the 5-string open G deal?
Yeah, but it was a lot of other stuff. He did a lot of other stuff. There's more. You think that he's getting fancy then, but there's more. There's some other ones that he was messing around with that night. And so I just I liked him, and I really liked that record a lot. Yeah. And so it's something that I kind of experienced, and then I just kind of filed it away, put it in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
At any point, it kind of piqued my interest, to play, rock and roll. I started thinking, wow, I really liked that, and that was interesting. It was more interesting than maybe I thought at first glance, And so a few years ago, I don't know exactly when, but I started hearing rumors that Bill Wyman was going to leave the band. Yeah. And I didn't really take it seriously until I started talking to people who said, well, no, it looks like maybe he's going to really leave. So then that, I just started thinking. And I've been, it's funny, man. I just have been in the position where I really wanted a few jobs, and I got them, you know. And
but you got the jobs everyone on Earth wanted. Every bass player on Earth wants.
You know, it's incredible. And so just with that same kind of attitude, like, I started to think, Rolling Stones, yeah. And I just, you know, kind of planted the seed then. Anyway, a few months passed, you know, and I heard again that he had, you know, then I heard that he had definitely left the band.
Yeah.
And I started calling around. I called Janice Crutch, Mix Management in Los Angeles, and I just left my name and number. She told me that's not going to happen for a long time, but, you know, I'll, you know, give me your name and number. So, at the same time, I started talking to, you know, to Charlie and Steve and kind of saying, oh, you know, if you guys run into, you know, Keith, just mention that, you know, of course, you know, I guess, I don't know whether they were, you know, whether Charlie was thinking about the gig or anything like that, but anyway, I guess shortly after that, no, it was actually about maybe 9 months or so after that, I got a call from a young woman saying that she had heard that the Stones were going to audition me, you know.
Yeah.
And so that happened. That happened in June last year.
Where?
In New York. The first one was at SIR in New York. And I went in and played, you know, through a lot of hits, you know. Or,
did you woodshed?
I didn't really.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of, you know, when I found out I was going to audition, I did start listening to, you know, Stones records, but I never really sat down and did like homework or anything like that. I mean, a little bit, you know, but.
What's the secret to making it work with the Stones? What's the challenge?
The challenge for me was to go in and to play what was needed for the material.
Yeah.
But to sound like me doing it.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, to kind of move back a little bit, when I auditioned for Miles back in May of '83, I remember thinking to myself, I think the best thing for me to do is to go in here and play the way I play. Because if I go in and try to play like somebody else and he likes it, then that means I'm stuck, you know, playing like that for as long as I play with them.
Good way to approach it.
And so I just, and the same thing was really true in this situation. I mean, I did, you know, the day of the audition, I did kind of run over, you know, a few tunes that I thought, you know, they would play.
Like Miss You and that kind of stuff?
Miss You and Brown Sugar. Actually, I don't know if this is, well, I guess it doesn't matter now, but I had friends, because I had been hanging out with Keith and those guys.
Yeah.
I had friends on the tour, Tony Russell.
Yeah.
So Tony Russell was also in charge of, you know, kind of organizing the auditions.
Yeah.
So a few hours before I auditioned, Tony called me and said, okay, they're probably going to play through this and this and this and this and this.
You owe him one.
I do. I really do. And so I, you know, I just kind of buffed up on those tunes a little bit, and I went in and just played. You know, it's interesting though, because, you know, I learned the tunes, but, and I don't know if this is a result of me just kind of being a poor student or it's just the way I work, but I didn't, even from the beginning, I didn't go in thinking, okay, I got to play this like Bill Wyman played.
Yeah.
You know, I really thought, no, I'll just go in, I'll learn the songs, I'll just kind of know what's going to happen, and I'll just go in and play what I think should be, you know, in the, you know, in those places. And I remember at the end of it, after playing through, I think it was 4 or 5 tunes, 5 or 6 tunes.
Yeah.
Two things I remember. One is that when I arrived, the guys, all of them, were really, really very, very kind of very nice. They just really made me feel, very comfortable from the beginning. I had met Mick during the filming of Bring on the Night with Sting. He was backstage one night at the Mogador Theater in Paris. And when I walked in, I expected, I said, well, that'll be my end for my conversation with him. And he walked right up to me and said, yeah, you remember we met, and
Wow,
and
that's
so
cool.
I thought, wow, this is cool. And Charlie, of course, was really nice.
Yeah.
And Ronnie, as always, he's an incredible people person to me. He's really a warm guy.
Yeah.
But all of them. And then I knew Keith a little bit, and he was...
What sets Charlie's drumming apart? Or what impresses you about the way he drums?
Charlie has been... I'm just impressed with any musician who finds their way of doing something and over a period of time, they just get to be great at doing that, He really has a great backbeat, and I must admit, he has some of the sensibilities of jazz musicians.
He said he said in our interview he had a lot of trouble with time.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, it really surprised me to hear it from Mr. Time.
I do. I disagree with that. Well, I mean, what he's talking about, I don't know exactly. I could imagine that. I can't imagine exactly what he's speaking about, but maybe that's my point in saying that he has his way of doing things. It's funny because in my mind,
Hi, Darryl.
hey, how you doing, Ronnie?
Hi, Ronnie.
That's what I mean about guys, figuring out their way of doing things,
Yeah.
I don't say that there are a few musicians, a few drummers I've played with who had time like metronomes.
Yeah.
But then that's not really that important for me anyway,
It's not important for the Stone sound either.
Really, and Charlie is, in spite of what he said, a very steady, very dependable, musician. And really, that's all I've ever needed to play well, or to play what I think is my better, to do my better work. I think, and really, enough said. I think he really. There is a steadiness that he has, a kind of, lop, and he drops that back, he drops that left hand just in the right place. And another thing about, metronomic, musicians is that just because a guy plays a backbeat on 2 and 4, don't mean it's in the right place.
Right.
There's a lot of leeway with that makes music feel a certain way. These are things that whether he may not know he knows, but he knows.
He's got the feel.
It just happens. It's something that, for him, again, and maybe he's speaking that way because it's not something that he ever, sat and, and tried to very, kind of, to figure out.
Yeah.
But just after, the years and years of doing this, he's got it. He's arrived at that place,
Yeah.
in my mind.
Have you gone back through the catalog now that you're playing with the band and listened to a lot of the old records?
Since I've been here, more than anything. I mean, one of I had a few different ideas about how to learn the music. One was to shed everything and then know every tune when they called it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do that for two reasons. One, God knew what they were going to play, and there's about 400 plus songs that they were going to be choosing from.
That's
so
formidable.
I did sit down, you know, about 6 weeks before I got here, about a month before I got here. I sat down and started listening to stuff, and finally, after I listened to, you know, 4 or 5 records, it was just bewildering. I thought, who knows what they're going to play?
Yeah.
You know? And then I started to think to myself, well, maybe the best idea is to listen to the music, just listen to the kind of direction of the Stones, and to try to understand a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But to just go into rehearsal and look in these guys' faces every day and play through the songs, so that if we get on stage and something changes, you know, if something happens, then I can still be able to look in their face and know something is about to happen, and I can follow them, rather than just saying, okay, I know the form of this tune because I've listened to the record 15 times. You know, that will never do. That's not music to me.
Yeah.
And so what I really decided was just to come here and play with these guys and to get on the vibe, you know, just to try to realize what they're doing and try to look at them and realize, okay, that, you know, Mick moves that way when something is about to happen, or there's an expression on his face, or Keith does this, or there's some kind of body language. You know? And I think that has probably served me a little bit better. A couple of days ago, we were playing through a song, and Keith went through, or we were in the van, but he went to a change, you know, and I went with him. Like I'm going to do on stage. If Mick is standing out there and I realize he's not going to go where we practice going, so I'm going to go with him, because to me that's music.
Yeah.
You know.
Keith described his role on the record as resident tyrant. Is that accurate?
It's definitely true, and definitely true in some cases. Yeah, there were a few things.
Give me an example.
Well, he just, you know, every once in a while, he just seems to like just stir it up a little bit. That kind of gets everybody's blood going, and you know that's. I think it works. You know,
Deliberate anti, I think he calls it, like going against it, anti this, anti that.
And it's funny, he says it's deliberate, but I think it's more of really who Keith is. You know, sometimes he looks at things and says, you know, he wants to be, what's his name? The guy on Gilligan's Island who landed wrong way.
Oh, right.
Sometimes he just decides everybody else is going that way, I'm going this way. You know, and I think it's just part of his nature a little bit.
How did cutting a record with the Stones compare to cutting a record with Miles? Completely different experience?
Not really. I mean, most of this record for me was done playing tracks down with everybody playing. And
a lot of it was cut live, you saying?
Right, yeah. You know, everybody played, we learned the song, we cut it. We come in the next day and say, well, let's see if we can beat the take that we did yesterday. And by this time, everyone is learning the song better.
Yeah.
And different things are starting to happen when we go to play it, you know. And not exactly, but similar things happened when I recorded the Decoy record with Miles.
Man, I love your
There was
playing on
one
that.
thing, that's like the first record I did. You know,
it's great.
You know, I'm proud of that record too. I really
you have a right to be.
Yeah. We with Miles a lot of times, depending on what it was we were playing. If we were playing a song, then very much the same way. Everybody would come in the studio and we just play through it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
If we were cutting something with Miles that was kind of jam oriented, then we would just jam on it for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And he might take pieces of it and then put them together, you know. So it was slightly different, but There are some similarities here.
Let's hear them.
The thing that you just said about Keith, a lot of times, I would want to go back and redo stuff with Miles, and he just would trust the integrity of the first thing that I played a lot of times, and he just wouldn't allow you to do things that you thought, you were so sure you were right about wanting to change that or about wanting to do that again, and he would be against you in that. This kind of in a similar way, Keith, just decides, well, no, that's not, we're going to do that a different way. And it's a kind of vision, I think, guys who can see kind of past, the neatness of the track and kind of see into the depth of it and see into the, how all of those little quirks really make a, they make a difference. They make it kind of looser and wilder, and more human in a way, I guess.
Are you intimidated at all by the role you're in now?
No. I tell you, really, man.
I could never get in front of that many people and do anything.
It's interesting because for me, I guess a long time ago, playing in front of Miles, just me and him and Vince Wilburn in a room was as intimidated as I'll ever get.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think playing with him removed a lot of that for me.
After you've been with Miles, you pretty much faced it all.
Right. That really is my thinking, whether it's accurate or not. I really do feel that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What kind of equipment are you using? Did you have to strip down or anything?
No, the building up is the kind of thing that happens in this band. Now, mind you, I came into this situation, this rehearsal, with I use Meyer sound equipment. Mm-hmm. I came with 215 cabinet. There's a technical name for that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Meyer 215 cabinet and 2 wedges, both with a 12 and a horn. And there's a technical name for that cabinet, U21 or something like that. Anyway, you can check that with my technician. And Ashley preamps, a little bit of processing of digital EQ, and a little bit of compression, and 2 Crown power amps, Macrotech 2400 and a Microtech 1200. So we're already talking about 3,600 watts of power.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I came with.
Not good enough?
Well, I'm standing next to Keith. This is something you have to keep in mind. And not only have I heard it from people who have worked with him, for a long time now, since I met Charlie.
That he's loud, you're saying?
That he can be really loud. But I've also seen it for myself now that I've been here for a while. Or even during the recording of the record, there were some times when he was, I don't want to say loud, because that kind of connotes that he's not, playing anything. But he, there's a kind of punctuation that is there, that is something that if you're passing in that path, it's something that will perk your ears up, so to speak, okay?
Your whole body moves.
Yeah. It's, in fact, Charlie Drayton once said to me, it's like, that deer in the headlights kind of syndrome, something like that, So, Keith's a very powerful, plays at a very powerful level, let's put it like that.
That's funny.
So, from 3,600 watts, I'm going now to twice that. And instead of 115 cabinet and 2 cabinets, I've gone to I've doubled the 215. So we bought it. So I was using 415s.
Yeah.
and those 2 cabinets. Well, now we've doubled that. So I'm using 4 215 cabinets and 4 12-horn combination cabinets.
Are you playing 5-string?
No. I know it's, I've played it on gigs whenever someone calls me and says that they want it, or I listen to the music that they're playing and I realize that it's needed, then I do it. But I do think, especially with kids, man, I think that those instruments are overrated, I think it's a great thing. It can be used beautifully. Anthony Jackson and many other guys now are doing really meaningful work with it. But I grew up playing 4-string bass, and to me, that will always be home. I can play a 5-string bass, but I'll never feel at home on it as much as 4-string, simply because I'm not prepared to play it all the time. And somehow, it just don't seem right with these guys. There is one tune that I tuned down for.
Drop D?
I use a drop D, or just tune the string down. Because that whole song is, go suck on the jugular.
Right.
It's a little D flat on that tune. So,
do you have to harness your techniques at all, or are there some you need to expand?
No, I don't think I have to harness my techniques, because I've always been a kind of breadbasket player. I just what I did with Miles, and it's funny, man, because my playing hasn't changed that much from one gig to the next gig. What I've been fortunate, I think, is to kind of understand and to really enjoy playing a lot of different kinds of music, and to kind of have the sense to kind of go and say, okay, well, what is the essence of that? And just kind of go for that. I think that for me is the most important thing. And I say, if there's a challenge here, it's really just to cut away the fat and go for just go for the lowest common denominator. And that worked very well with Miles, and with everyone else that I've worked with. And I just that's the way I play.
Smart strategy.
And I felt, even before I just decided I want to play with the Rolling Stones, I had to think to myself, okay, does what I do, could it fit with the Rolling Stones? And the answer to myself was yes, I think so.
What's your favorite tracks on the new record? For the bass playing.
For the bass playing?
Yeah.
Brand New Car is really one
That's
of my
cool.
favorites.
Yeah.
Keith is playing bass on that.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Is it on the? I don't recall reading it.
Yeah.
He played a lot of good bass with the Stones.
Exactly. I keep hearing tunes now, and he keeps saying, now that he knows I like his playing, he'll say,
He points at himself.
That's me. And I can tell now. I can actually tell now.
How do you tell?
He's got a few motifs.
Like what classic song is a Keith bass thing?
There are some reggae tunes. I don't know the names of songs. I don't even know the names of the songs we're playing. I'm starting to know the songs, but now I've got to put the names with them. But there are some reggae things that he plays great on. Ronnie also plays great.
Oh, he played great
some
bass
stuff
20 years ago.
He plays great on some stuff. So I can't call a particular tune. But Brand New Car is.
I know he played bass on Street Fighting Man.
Street Fighting Man. It takes me a second to get that back in my head. Yeah, there are lots. There are a number of them. I'm also finding out, listening to all this music, people. And I don't know if they're just trying to, kind of razz my berries or what, but people are, I hear a lot of people say, well, Bill's a really good bass player. I'm finding that out,
I was going to ask you about that. What are his strengths?
The same, really, it's kind of interesting, though we have a very different touch on the instrument, I think from what I'm hearing from people, I'm assuming that his touch is kind of light. Mine is rather heavy, especially after I know what I'm doing.
That's funny.
But he really, I think the same thing, man. He kind of goes for the real, the meat and potatoes of what will make the tune work,
Yeah.
There's one of the tunes, I don't remember which one it is, but it's got a kind of country and western feel, or country tune feel. And it's funny. I mean, maybe some guys will find it funny coming from me.
Yeah.
But I just think that, I think it's beautifully done, man. A bass line, a guy doesn't have to, play all over the bass track for me to think that it's great. It's just about very little bit of phrasing and just being solid,
Yeah.
To me, I love that, I love that probably more than any of the other stuff. I must love it more because that's what I do best.
Was there a lot of instant arranging or on-the-spot arranging going on in the studio, or were things pretty worked out?
Well, there was a lot of instant arranging going on.
Yeah.
A lot of changes of instant, one day we'd have it this way, and then we'd come in, we'd say, well, that seems, they said, well, that seems a little bit too long there, so we'll change that. And so there were a lot of...
Do Jagger and Richards typically agree on these changes?
Though I can't say this for sure, but I would venture to say that they agreed a lot more on this record, maybe than they have in the past.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times that they don't agree.
Yeah.
And I guess, and then what that comes down is to one of them or being able to communicate with the other guy enough to make him see their vision.
Yeah.
And say, well, the reason why I see it is this way. And then, I guess, Keith or Mick, whoever was in the situation, will say, well, that makes sense.
Is Jagger's studio persona the same as the stage persona, or is it really different? Is he as much of a cut-up or a showman when he's in the studio, or is he like down to business, stand there and get it right?
Well, I think the answer to that is yes and no. Well, obviously he's not, moving around in the studio as
Right.
much. But it's funny because people kind of separate, the way he moves and stuff from who he is. And really, you can't. Certain things that he does are because he's feeling a certain way, I think,
Yeah.
It's like me when I move on stage. People say, well, yeah, he dances on stage and stuff. But if you could ask Miles, he would tell, he used to tell the other guys in the band when I was in the band, he used to say, if you look up and Darryl is not moving, it's not grooving.
What's the funniest thing Miles ever said to you on stage, or the most surprising thing?
Oh, there was lots of that
Too
stuff.
many of them?
There was lots of that stuff. In fact, I used to always have journalists coming up to me after the gig and saying to me, what were you and Miles talking about? Because he used to actually come and talk to me on stage during the gig sometime, and he would sometimes, I remember once, and this is not really funny, but once he came to me and just said, this isn't really tight, So I was standing there playing, and I just, I kind of looked at my watch for a second and said, we've been on for an hour and 45 minutes. We can split, He said, okay, we'll play like another tune and then we'll split. Well, we ended up playing 2 hours and 35 minutes. This is, kind of guy that he was.
Yeah.
What was the question again? I just spaced.
Some of the weirder things he said to you. Because I know I've met other guys that would say punched him or would just do something to get him.
Well, I think one thing is that and maybe this may have been one of the things that Miles was kind of impressed with me for. I was always present on stage with Miles, I was always there,
Tuned to him, you mean?
Yeah, I was always listening. I was never playing and thinking about something, almost never.
Yeah.
And one night, he looked at me and he realized that I was 1,000 miles away. And he just walked over to me and started cussing, but not cussing me out. He was just joking with me like, I caught you. I finally caught you sleeping. It was only for 10 seconds, but I caught you, And, your mama, fuck you. He just kind of,
Oh, that's
but
a great
it was,
story.
I could tell that he had just caught me sleeping there just for a second,
Yeah.
But that was really rare. That only happened one time,
Yeah.
that he actually saw. But there were many wonderful things that he said to me.
Well, now you're committed to do this Stones tour.
Mhm.
Is that the length of your commitment, or?
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly,
Yeah.
yes. I'm hoping that if something else happens, I really like playing with these guys. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's got to be the greatest gig of '94.
Yeah. And this is it definitely. This is real high up there to me. And
Yeah.
it's not. It's not just the music. It's I really like these guys.
Yeah.
They're all really interesting people to me. They've been through a lot. They've seen a lot. They know a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn. And that's something that's always been important to me. I think I get bored. Miles used to say that about me. He used to say that me and Tony Williams were like that. He says, I have to stay on your case. I have to kind of keep you interested in stuff because I can see you like Tony, you'll get bored, And that's maybe one of the reasons why I've kind of gone from playing this to playing that. And
Yeah.
Because I just always want to learn and see what's that like, what can I gain from that?
Yeah.
A lot of people say, why are you going to play with Madonna? Because I wanted to see how she was doing what she did. She obviously has done something
Oh yeah.
that no one else has really done in that way anyway.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see, what she was like, what it was like to work with her. And I tell you, I learned something, man. Hard ass work, That's what I learned from her.
Is it harder work than working with the Stones?
It's just these guys work hard, but they're always going to have a lot of fun working hard,
Yeah.
And I won't say that working hard with her wasn't fun, but it was a lot more. This is, this is business, this is business. And it's a lot more, not to say that we didn't have fun. I had a lot of fun working with her. And she's really a fun chick. At rehearsal, she's hilarious,
I've always liked her a lot.
But these guys, they move at a much more leisurely pace, and I guess that helps the music feel a different way.
Yeah.
With Madonna, it was about a certain amount of precision.
Yeah.
With these guys, it's not about precision. It's about let's just make this shit feel good. Like let's just make it feel cool.
That covers it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Boy.
Was that good? Was that?
Yeah, really good.
Okay. That's enough stuff.
Thanks,
there.
man.
All right.
Really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome, man. You're welcome.
Good luck.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot. I'm really looking forward to this.
God, it's going to be hard to top what you've done already. How old are you?
32.
Where do you go, man? You deal with Miles.
I haven't
The
done a record on
Stones.
my own yet.
There you go. Who's going to be on it?
Well, that's a good question. I know a lot of guys, right?
Maybe you better not say.
I know a lot of people, man. But yeah, I think. Well, I'll save that for the next interview.
Okay.
We'll do that in the next
Great.
interview. But just that much. I haven't done a record on my own yet.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. It was fun, man. It's
Yeah.
nice talking to you.
Okay.
I'm happy to report that 30 years later, Darryl Jones is still the bass player in the Rolling Stones. I'd like to invite you to check out my other interviews with Keith, Mick, Woody, Charlie, and Chuck Leavell, which were done during the same 2-day period in Toronto in 1994. Before signing off, I want to thank my friend and producer, Nick Hunt, who puts together these YouTube videos for me, and the fine folks at the Southern Folklife Collection. This podcast is copyright 2024 by Jazz Obrecht, all rights reserved. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.